like it was the only thing holding the teenage hormonal motherfucker in. She removed my shirt, and I removed hers. It wasn't about showing her mine, or showing me hers. It was about needing to feel the skin, and the clothes, as she put me back on top of her and recaptured my lips. My necklace was still there resting above her heart as I kissed my way down her neck. And her ring was still on my finger as I intertwined my fingers in hers, and rolled us over onto my back. She kissed my scars again and I just leaned my head back, and tangled my fingers in her hair with a sigh. I liked that shit. A lot. But then she straightened up and removed her bra. I kind of gaped at her breasts when she freed them, and my girl looked shy and insecure, as she bit her lip and gazed down at me uncertainly. Which was stupid, because she was fucking beautiful. I told her so as I took her in my hands, and massaged. She liked that. A lot. Throwing her head back, and arcing her chest into my hands with a throaty moan. Then my dick was hard. A lot. I had never done this whole making love thing before, but I really fucking tried as much as possible to show it as I kissed her peaks, and all of her scars, like she had done to me, the jagged one that crept up between her breasts, and the little ones that scattered over her ribs and torso. I showered them in kisses. Her hands weaved through my hair, but she didn't pull. And she didn't bite. She wasn't trying to spur me on, because she didn't need to. I felt ready and willing. A lot. She rolled us over so I was on top of her again. She liked something about my being on top. It made me a little nervous, because it seemed so dominant to me, but she didn't seem to mind it, and there were no cookies being said, so I trailed my kisses down to her stomach, and began removing her jeans. They got tossed away like the rest of our clothes. It could have been beside my bed, or the black fucking hole of the universe for all I knew. Nothing else existed, as we kept our gazes locked on each other and our chests heaved in anticipation. Fuck. The anticipation. It was palpable in the air between us, what little air there was, as I glided my hands up her little, soft legs. There were more scars there. Up high on her thighs. I kissed them too, as she ran her fingers through my hair languidly, and stared into my eyes longingly. As if there were anything to long for. I'd give her fucking anything. My hand made its way to her center, touching her through her panties, and she gasped and moaned and writhed, and the teenage hormonal motherfucker was doing a little dance somewhere when she didn't say the safe word. She put me up and took my lips again as I kept rubbing her, trying to make it pleasurable for as long as possible because I knew it wouldn't be pleasant the entire time. She grabbed my erection through my jeans and I grunted into her mouth as I thrust it into her palm. I was trying to find that line between making love and fucking, as she unbuttoned my jeans and slid them down my legs with her little feet. And it was really fucking hard to not be overcome with lust when she grabbed me again and stroked me through the thin remaining fabric. I gripped the pillow at either side of her head and groaned, plunging my face into her neck and breathing in the smell of my girl desperately. I trembled as I fought to remember what this was about. Love, not lust. And I was chanting it in my head as I panted and clenched my eyes shut. Because I really didn't want to fuck my girl, and the teenage hormonal motherfucker was wondering if there was any difference between making love and fucking. She knew just how to drive the teenage hormonal motherfucker away though.
I love you,
she whispered tenderly into my ear, as she stroked me through my boxers slowly. And those three little words spoken in unison with her stroking palm made the whole feeling different for me. I lifted my forehead to rest against hers and I rubbed her through her panties, returning the gesture with words and touch. I was going to just slip off her panties as I moved down her body, like it was no big fucking deal for me to be doing that to my girl. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, even though I had never seen that part of her. I was a little embarrassed as I paused with my fingers hooked in the elastic and I glanced up at her. She lifted her hips in response to my silent question, so I slid them off slowly, maintaining eye contact with her the whole time. They got thrown into the black fucking hole of the universe surrounding my bed, and when I looked, I touched. And when I touched, she moaned. And when she moaned, I groaned. And it was so fucking sexy when I watched my fingers slide into her that I had to tell her I loved her again as I shifted my gaze to hers. And when she told me loved me, it made it feel differently to me. I didn't feel guilty about being so turned on by the sight of my fingers moving in and out of her. I licked my lips lazily as I watched it, and listened to her moans of pleasure. Fuck. I wanted to taste it. I told her so. And the dual looks of utter shock, and just yes, please plastered all over face made me want to fucking kiss her senseless. When she nodded silently, I did just that. Of course I did, and kissed her on the mouth. And, fucking Christ, did she like it. A lot. I worked so hard to make her come with my tongue and my fingers, because I just knew that it would probably be the only time that night she would. She brought a pillow over her face to muffle her moans and cries, and I reached up and ripped it the fuck away as my tongue worked relentlessly between her legs. Because I had to hear. My name fell from her lips in a chant as she began constricting around my fingers, and her thighs quivered against my ears. She said my name, followed by a low fuck that made my dick twitch as she finally came with her fingers in my hair, and her back arcing off the bed. She hardly ever cursed. I liked hearing her do so in the throes of passion. A lot. I had leaned back on my ankles while she recovered, contemplating my next move, before she sat up and threw her arms around my stomach, burying her face in my chest. My girl fucking hugged me. She sincerely hugged me for eating her out. It was simultaneously the weirdest and sweetest reaction I would have ever expected from giving oral. It was just so Bella. I returned the hug after the initial shock wore off, encircling her in my arms as I smelled her hair, and felt a pang of remorse that I hadn't thought of a similarly sweet gesture when she fellated me on Valentine's Day. I think she probably wanted to do more of that after she slid my boxers off and tossed them into the black fucking hole of the universe. But I didn't let her. For many reasons. I had just somewhat balanced the scale with my oral, and I was in no hurry to have them tipped again. I felt shitty enough. Then we were both completely naked together. Me and my girl. In my bed. Naked. A lot. And we were surprisingly comfortable. No awkward bullshit or blushes, or subtle attempts at covering areas with a blanket as we lie down. I was hers, and she was mine. And we showed each other what was theirs. Hands and eyes roamed and caressed curves and flesh. I had never in my entire life been as regretful of the ghosts of bad fucks past as when I watched her explore my body. My girl looked so amazed as her eyes followed the trail her fingertips made over my flesh. Skin to skin with no barriers. She was alight with fascination at the feeling. I envied her awe and wonderment at being so intimately close to someone for the first time. That she had waited to feel this, and not just an empty fuck in a hot car against slick upholstery with empty people that didn't give a shit about you. Of course I was also ridiculously happy she had waited. That I could give her something with substance and love like I never had. And as we explored, we memorized every little perfect imperfection. No scar went unkissed, and no freckle went unnoticed. She had little mole on her left hip. She squirmed and giggled as I kissed it, because she was ticklish. It made me smile, but nothing was said as we explored, and kissed because nothing needed to be said. We did it with gazes and glances, and the gentle sweeps of our fingertips and lips as we sighed and fucked. This was what it was like to make love. And then I was alight with my own awe and wonderment that it was even possible to distinguish one from the other. But it was there and I could see it. The look in her eyes and the way we touched as I rolled her over and underneath me the way she liked. Not urgent, or demanding, but reverently savoring every moment. She looked amazing and beautiful as she lay beneath me offering me all of her body and soul, with absolute certainty, while her eyes shone with love and tender and affection. Not need and want and desperation. I wasn't truly ready until that exact second to follow through with it. I had convinced myself 5 nights prior that I was, but I was so fucking wrong. Because I was still having those doubts, that she wasn't ready. That she was doing it for the wrong reasons. And as I gazed down at her I could tell that wasn't the case at all. So I kept going. The curiosity in her eyes as I put on the condom was amusing to me, and so fucking sweet and innocent and endearing that it gave me a pang of guilt for taking it all away. I asked her again, because I had to. I already knew the answer before she whispered it to me, but I had to hear it anyways. I had to tell her how much I loved and adored the shit out of her as I positioned myself between her legs and rested my forehead against hers. She smiled and told me the same. She looked excited and curious and still a little amazed by the whole thing. But mostly she just looked like she loved me as she licked her lips and stared into my eyes. And I really fucking loved her. Really, we both loved each other. A lot. So I pushed into her slowly. Really fucking slowly, because I couldn't decide if it would be more or less painful if it was swift or slow. But slow had been good to us thus far. Her lips parted, and she bathed my face in a warm exhale as my hand created a fist in the pillow under her head. I could feel the barrier when I reached it, and I fought a grimace as I gazed into her lust-hooded eyes. I clenched my teeth because it felt so fucking good and warm and strong and right. It's going to hurt. I ground out through my teeth remorsefully. My fist tightened in the pillow against the overwhelming strain of the all-encompassing need to just fucking do it. She told me what I already knew. There was no avoiding that shit. The pain was inevitable. And no amount of time or preparation was going to make it any more pleasant. Then she shifted her hips and begged me with her eyes to continue as her chest heaved beneath me in anticipation. So I fucking did it. I thrust it into her with a soft grunt, deciding swift was better for the actual pain portion of the act. My eyes rolled back into my head once I was completely inside of my girl. I think I might have whimpered her name, as all the air left my lungs in a sharp gust against her face. It felt so good and so fucking perfect that I nearly missed the way she had completely stiffened and began gasping beneath me. And I knew what was coming. I was out of her and leaning back on my ankles off of her before the safe word could even escape her mouth, but it did nonetheless. Again and again, as she gasped and I kind of fucking panicked at the sight of her trembling in front of me. There was blood. And her eyes were clenched closed as she chanted cookie over and over again in shaky gasps. It was fucked up and I felt shitty and unsure of what to do as I stroked her cheek and tried to calm her with my voice and caress. I was so goddamn mortified as I kissed her cheeks and began shaking nearly as much as she was. I figured the panic attack she was having would pass as the pain subsided, but it didn't make me feel any better in that moment as I glanced down at her trembling body. She looked so scared, and there was still blood. Blood that I drew with my love. And I couldn't look at it anymore. I lurched off the bed and sprinted to the bathroom and turned on the shower with my very unsteady hands, and when I returned to the room she had rolled onto her side and was hugging her knees tightly. I wandered over to her, slipping my arms beneath her and grimacing as I picked her up. She was silent as I walked her into the bathroom, not even questioning what I was doing, and I was thankful for it. The logical part of my brain was kicking in and I utilized it fully in the evident emergency of the situation. The need to just have her okay and clean again was overwhelming as I stepped into the shower with her in my arms. By the time her feet reached the tiles and the warm water hit her face she was crying and fucking apologizing to me. That pissed me off. I told her so as I leaned her head under the stream of hot water and smoothed her hair out of her face. I began washing her hair because it seemed like a soothing gesture as I massaged her scalp with my fingertips gently. She remained quiet as she slowly relaxed into my touch, and the last of her tears were washed away with the blood of her innocence down my showered rain. She stared at me as I washed her hair, and eventually her little arms came